Hello, ITEA. I'm Dr. Alexander Lappins, and I'm the Tuba professor at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. Welcome to this warm-up class. I ask that you either use headphones or quality speakers for this, as I'm going to be your partner in these warm-ups, and there's a lot of acrobatic, very low contrabass tuba playing. That's not going to sound great on built-in speakers, and since I'm going to be your pitch reference, if you're not hearing the entirety of my sound, it's not going to really help you work on your intonation very much. One thing I want you to think about is a lot of this stuff is pretty advanced, and I want you to be thinking about prioritizing excellence and growth, but not perfection. I'm going to chip a few notes, you're going to chip a few notes, that's okay. Just try to make it your best work, and do that every single day as you show up for your fundamental session. The exercises we're going to be playing are from my Dueling Fundamentals for Tuba book, and they are intentionally very challenging. The buzzing exercises to start out with are going to be without music, but the rest of the stuff should be in PDF forms that you're able to access as part of this class. There are versions of Dueling Fundamentals for each brass instrument, including a separate book for Euphonium that I wrote, and then books for trombone, horn, and trumpet written by authors who play those instruments primarily. And each book is very specifically customized to each instrument. These are advanced books, and they're not for the faint of heart. I will be playing the lower line in each written out exercise, and you are to be playing the higher line. So this is as though you're playing Dueling Fundamentals with me. There's only one place where we're going to switch lines for a repeated exercise, and I'll point that out when we get to it. A quick note about these buzzing videos. I'm using, for the first two, a rim visualizer. For the last one, I'm going to be using a burp device. And I'm not very prescriptive about what you're using. If you want to buzz on a mouthpiece, fine. If you want a free buzz, rim, burp, whatever suits your fancy. There are going to be 3 buzzing exercises here, all very traditional. And I'm going to be buzzing in the tuba range. Of course, euphoniums should buzz an octave higher than where I'm buzzing, and I'll be using a Dr. Beat drone for a pitch reference. First one is a classic choral warm-up. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, starting on low C and ascending. So something like this. And then we'll go up a half step, up a half step, up a half step until we've covered a full octave. Here we go. This next one is going to be the classic jack stamp trumpet exercise where we are going to be buzzing. 1, 2, 1, 5, 6, 5, 1, 2, 1. We're going to start this on F, so tuba players, this is going to be F in the bass clef staff. Euphonium players, this will be F above the bass clef staff, so starting on high F, and we're going to take this down descending. So we'll do this in F major, then E flat, until we get to F, an octave lower than that. Go for intonation, but especially also go for smoothness, the quality of the slur. Make these peanut buttery slurs. And if this is too high or too low for you at any point, switch the octave, all right? Make sure that wherever you're buzzing, that it's in tune. The third and final buzzing exercise we're going to do is how low can you go? This is going to start on low C. So tuba's fifth below the staff, euphonium player's C in the staff, and this is going to be a simple chromatic exercise. And if you didn't quite catch that, that is just C, B, C, B, B flat, B. And I am using the burp device. I really like, right before I do my long tones, to do a buzzing exercise with the burp device to really connect that idea that you're going to buzz with commitment into your instrument, and that buzzing and playing are not two completely unrelated things, because as far as I'm concerned, they're pretty closely related. I do think of this as cross-training. So, here we go. All right. For this first long tone exercise, you can go home again, which is a series of 5-to-1 resolutions. Prioritize slur quality, intonation, and as this gets lower and lower, if you need to break slurs to breathe, as I do, that's A-okay. Just make it your best sound in tune. The second long tone exercise we're doing today, Weeping Willow, is in minor keys. And every 4 bars we're changing keys, and in the last pair of notes before those key changes, there's a minor third in one of the voices. Be aware that just like you would lower a major third quite a bit, you're going to raise that minor third as best you can. 1, 2, 3. The next thing we're going to do is the stabilizer exercise, chord compression, which is kind of a joke name because these aren't chords, these are just fifths and octaves. We're going to play this exercise twice. The first time through, you're going to be on the top line. The second time through, you're going to be on the bottom line. 1, 2, 3. This next stabilizer exercise, Fafner Prep, challenges us in the ways that those dragon solos do from Wagner's Ring Cycle. This is to explore your loudest and your softest playing, and it's going to go beyond your capacity, although we try to trick audiences into thinking that we can make it through this sort of thing. As this gets lower, feel free to break slurs to breathe. Again, I do that. Make this your best sound, as in tune as you possibly can, with great slurs. This next scale and articulation exercise, Fantastique, is borrowing from the end of Symphony Fantastique. And it goes along pretty quickly. We're going to do this in 2 tempos, a slow tempo followed by a fast tempo. Keep those eyes open and try to look ahead for the next interval. This next scale and articulation exercise, Melodic Minor Mayhem, has all the accidentals written out for you. The second half of this, where we are outlining minor chords, is to be played pesante and forte. If the range gets a little challenging for you at the end, just keep playing tonic rather than arpeggiating all the way down into the pedal register. We're going to do this again, 2 tempos, once slow, once fast. 1, 2, Thank you again for being part of this warm-up class. I hope you had fun. I did. And I want to also thank the Eastman Music Company for helping make my participation in this warm-up class possible. Have a great conference.
I'm the tuba player in the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I also teach tuba at the University of Calgary. I'm here to talk about getting back in shape. The last year has been really difficult for a lot of us. And a lot of us have decided, for numerous reasons, to take time off playing. It's been a challenge to stay engaged without life being normal. And so because of that, I think a lot of us, for the first time, are experiencing what it's like to be really out of shape and having to come back to the tuba after some significant time away. Personally speaking, I was faced with a very difficult illness that preceded COVID, and that forced me to take quite a bit of time off from playing the tuba. More time off from playing the tuba than perhaps I've done probably in almost 15 to 20 years before getting sick. So I'm not really a player or performer who's used to days off. I know there's various thoughts on this and approaches to staying in shape and staying engaged. For me though, I've always been a player who likes to play every day. Is it physically necessary? No. But mentally, I really like to stay engaged and to stay as close to my tuba as I can. To the point where, even before my audition for the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra, before the audition was announced, in fact, I had a vacation planned in Jamaica with my wife, which was long overdue. And it was too close to the audition for comfort. So I even found myself bringing my little travel F tuba and playing lip slurs and long tones every day to stay in shape. So that gives you an idea of sort of how I approach days off and staying in shape. So for someone to go from that to someone who couldn't play the tuba for over 40 days straight and preceding that time off completely from the instrument, I was really challenged due to illness to play at all or to be mentally engaged. It was quite a discovery process for me to come back from that to where I am today. And I honestly think that going through that has made me a better player, and I'm in a better position now than I was before. But it wasn't without its challenges. And I know that some of you out there are facing the same thing. There are tuba players I know and euphonium players that have had COVID and been severely affected physically by it. And hopefully you're on the road to recovery and making strides. But when you get to that place of actually getting to play again and being mentally engaged, how do you do it? It's a really big challenge. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today, and how you can best approach coming back and honestly becoming better than ever, and not comparing yourself to the past, but starting from scratch and starting anew, and feeling great about where you are as a tuba player. So the first thing I want to talk about is there's really two components to recovery, and it's mental and it's physical. The mental side of things, I'm not going to touch on so much, because I think that when recovery really starts to take place, you have to be ready for it. And that's not something that I can tell you over a non-interactive masterclass here, but you will know when you are ready to begin again. And the word that really comes to mind about being ready to engage and to recover and to get back in shape is humility. That you have to really be accepting of where you are as a player and be okay with that, because that's where you're going to start from. The minute that you start comparing yourself to past performances or past abilities, or the highlight reel of what you imagine in your head of how you want to sound every time you play, you're going to get very frustrated. And frustration is the first thing that's going to stop you from engaging in the process of progress. And that's what we need to go to. So the mental side, I'm going to leave up to you. And when you are ready to take that first step and begin anew, then you'll start with what I'm talking about, which is getting back into shape and deciding where you're at. And that can be really humbling. And I think for me, on the road to recovery, there were more than one start and stop where I thought I was ready to get back in shape and just got too frustrated and tried to be too ambitious on the instrument. And that ended up being really ineffective. So when I finally got to the point of acceptance of where I was on the tuba, and how limited I was compared to my past abilities, then I was able to start the process of climbing that new mountain and making progress forward. So what's interesting with this is that when you come back from injury or illness or time away, there's a much larger physical component in how we play. And we analyze the physical and how that relates to our sound and how we play. And it's very frustrating because I certainly come from a school of teaching, and my teaching itself is very much based on the Arnold Jacobs School of Song and Wind. And so when you start thinking about the physical side of tuba playing, it can be a little scary. And the real question that we want to focus on, how we focus on song and wind, is being able to disregard the physical or the meat of what we do. Arnold Jacobs has this great quote about, not thinking about the meat of the embouchure. But what happens when the meat doesn't respond the same way? I know for me, when I took the tuba up and started to play again, that everything that I was playing and everything that I was feeling was a different sensation than what I remembered before. So that got really scary, because feel is definitely not what I would say the large majority of tuba teachers ever want to talk about. We want to live in sound and live in the concept of making great music and making great sound on our tuba. So after a little bit of frustration in trying to find some way to improve the physical side of what I was doing, or to analyze the physical side, it ended up reinforcing those really basic concepts that we can't focus on the physical, that sound becomes even more important. That's what we have to chase, is the sound. So my advice when you come back is to start as basic as possible, which is to find that one note. Everybody on the tuba has their one favorite note. You may not realize that. It may sound sort of silly, especially if you are in great shape right now and you haven't faced a challenge. But sometimes when you come back to the instrument and nothing quite works the way that you want it to, you can still find your favorite note. And so I know for me at the beginning of this process, the note that stood out was G at the bottom of the bass clef. So this was home bass. And as I repeat that, even today, it conjures up lots of memories in my subconscious and in my conscious about how I imagine I want to sound. And that's really the most important thing. The most personal, most sacred, and most private thing is the sound that's in your head. And that's the sound that you will chase for the entire time that you play the tuba. I've been chasing my sound since I heard great teachers and great performers back in high school, and realized that I wanted to develop my own sound, my own personality in my playing. And I have been chasing that ever since. And I could go into very specific detail about all the influences and the great teachers and the great influences that have helped conjure up my sound that I still haven't achieved. But it wouldn't scratch the surface in terms of the depth of what that sound means to me personally. And I know this may seem a little silly, but this is the base of everything that we do, is our bass sound that we want to take and to expand. And so that's the process that you start when you're coming back. Find that one note that you feel like encapsulates that sound for that day and that moment that sounds like you. And then you start to branch off. So for me, G was a happy place on C tuba, and I started to expand up and I started to expand down, little by little by little. So I would do things like, so what sounds great and work your way out from there. Whatever your favorite exercises that you're studying that or have played with your teachers, that was one that I think probably most people recognize, and it's the beautiful sounds from Sam Palafian's and Pat Sheridan's great book, The Brass Gym. That's been with me for 20 years, and it will continue to be with me for years and years and years. And that's where I lived, in the land of sound for as much as possible. So find your note. Mine is G. Some tuba players, I know a very famous orchestral tuba player who, once he retired, was telling one of his students how, on reflection of his career, the one note that he felt like he had mastered, that was his best note, was low D below the staff. And any time that he had to play that note, whether it be fortissimo or pianissimo or slurred or articulated, that he had mastered that. So I'm nowhere close, but I at least have identified where my home base is and where my comfort is in finding that great place. So I would start every day finding my happy place, just like the sun rises and the sun sets. Every day that I would begin, I would play my sacred G and go on from there and expand slowly. So after about a week, honestly, of some real dedicated time of just playing a lot of long tones, I got comfortable to expand. And the first thing that set in frustration-wise was how far I could expand. My range was severely limited, and that became a worry right away, because I was used to playing quite expansive music on both C and F tuba, and to not have access to that range right away was really frustrating. So again, I had to go back to being a little bit humble and not worry about it, and just say that with progress, that will come. Eventually, the embouchure will learn how to support you moving great air on all your pitches, and that range will come back. But you have to give it time. And that's the other thing I really want to stress in making a comeback or coming back from time away. It's much better if you can do it without a time constraint. I had taken roughly 3 months off work, and I had a very firm goal date to be back playing with the orchestra. And it was really important to me, I think more on the mental side, to be able to get back in the chair and to be doing all the things that I enjoy doing and expect of myself. And I worked really hard to get back to work. And I was proud of the fact that I did. It was really difficult, and it was really stressful. And of course, I got back to work, and about 2 months later, COVID hit, and we haven't had orchestra since. So that's over a year now. So I reflect back on that, and I think about the stress that I put myself under to produce, and it wasn't necessary. I could have said no. I could have had more patience, and I could have said, I'm not ready. And I wish that I had, because honestly, there's no rush. No matter where you are, whether it's high school or university, or whether you're a professional, you have to learn how to be able to say no and to know what's best for you. And again, there's a physical and a mental component to both of these with playing. Mentally, I needed to be back in the back row and around all my colleagues. But physically, I think perhaps it was too much of a stress. And so be kind to yourself. Really analyze what is necessary. Try to silence your ego as much as possible, and to not let that be the determining factor of when you should be back. So after I had expanded out and gotten more comfortable with more range and more sound, I came up with a little exercise that I still play every day, that I start my day off with. And if you come to the hall whenever I'm back there, you'll probably hear me playing it on stage, because it gives me a lot of security and a lot of relaxation in making my sound. So this is a little exercise. I call it Beautiful Descending Arpeggios. And it's exactly that. And I work my way all the way down to pedal F as sort of my wake up or sunrise. I really like that analogy of my sun and my sound is rising to take on the day. So that may sound silly, but that gives me great hope for the next day and the day after that, and that every day the sun will rise and every day my tuba will sound. So here's beautiful descending arpeggios, which probably should be pretty easy for you to figure out, not that complicated. And I like it. So here we go. So I like to be very aware of where I stand on the instrument, meaning that I like to be very conscious of how many octaves I can play, how loud, how soft I can play, how fast my single tongue is, all these variables that are measurable. I like to keep track on, and I like to try to progress every day. So although I spend time playing fundamentals every day, probably between 20 minutes and 45 minutes, I really don't consider it a warm-up. Now that I'm back in shape and playing the tuba every day, I don't feel like there's a period of time that takes a whole lot longer than that for me to be engaged mentally and physically to get better. And that's why I practice. I practice to get better at what I do, to maintain what I do, to be curious about what I do, and to discover new music. So it's not really a warm-up. It is time spent on fundamentals. And there's nothing more fundamental than sound. Nothing more fundamental than finding that one note, which is the door that opens to all of your notes in terms of making your best sound. So protect that time. Find the time every day to be humble and curious and discover where you're at, be okay with that, and start making progress from there. Once I got more expansive on what I could do, then I really started to monitor the progress that I was making. And honestly, when I got focused on progress and not the results, the process became pretty fun. And I started to get into streaks of knowing that I practiced X number of days in a row for this amount of time. And that became quite motivating. So I do really recommend that during quarantine times, to set some goals that are obtainable, and to really be disciplined about your daily attitude towards excellence, which is duplicating your best note in as many registers and dynamics and in permutations, whether it be short notes or long notes, as possible. And that excellence all comes from that one thing. So again, for me, the most personal note that I could find was that G, and everything started to come from there. And I would say after about 2 to 3 months of a very slow, appreciative time on the instrument, that progress was made. and the physical side of things, when I was worried about how my corners were feeling and how I didn't have a whole lot of endurance in the high register, that all started to disappear the more that I focused on just sustaining great sound for as long as I could. And then the next day you do it a little bit more and a little bit more, and it builds and builds and builds. So the next thing that really became important to me, besides finding that first note and becoming expansive with it, was major scales. And I know that sounds sort of funny, but after joining the Calgary Philharmonic, I really started to listen to what my colleagues do. And there's no shortage of scales being played on stage and being played in the dressing rooms and during warm-ups. And I'm really regretful that I didn't spend more time in my youth, in my study, emphasizing scales. So that's a huge part of what I do. When I get down to that pedal F, I start playing 2 octave scales every day for a couple of reasons. One is to maintain that knowledge of range, knowing where I can play, but also to really get better at playing low register playing that's based on what I'm hearing from the octaves below. So I'm not being manipulated by the instrument. I'm telling the instrument what to do in the most uncomfortable places, which frankly, down pedal F for that first octave up is really gnarly. The tuba will want me to play those notes in 5 or 6 different places. So the more that I am singing a major scale in my head, the more that I am telling the tuba exactly what to do and where the pitch needs to go. And all of a sudden the low register becomes a whole lot more manageable. So again, coming back to what I was talking about before, all of this has reinforced the concept of song and wind even more in my playing, particularly in the low register. If I can hear it and I can sing it, then all of a sudden those scales start to sound like major scales and not just rumbling notes below pedal C. So we go back to that pedal F that I was on before. So 2 octaves. And then I go back down to G flat. Half step up to G. Okay, so here's another important note for me in my history. When I studied with Sam Palafian at Arizona State University, we did a group warm-up 5 days a week. And one of the very first exercises we would do is what he calls chromatics in the brass gym book, and it's I think Clark study number 2. It shows on a low G flat, you play a tritone up and a tritone down. That chromatics used to be the starting point of my sun rising every day in my sound. Now I play all that stuff, but I still find myself wanting to gravitate back towards that low G flat. I also discovered that after years of playing that chromatic study, that by dropping it in an octave, I could work on false tones and also really get my low register to be very, very tuneful and based on sound and not based on feel. So I end those scales on the G flat, and then I work all the way back down to pedal G flat, and I do that chromatics study 1 octave lower, past all the false tones, to really hear the notes and make my tuba play them with false tones. So when I use the regular fingerings, they slot and become way easier. I also want to say that I've not talked anything so far about using my tongue, and that I spend as much time moving air and producing sound, sometimes even at the detriment of the attack. You probably heard some of my breath attacks weren't great today, and that's okay. I decided to record this sort of informally in where I've been teaching and playing for the last year, because this represents exactly where I am today. But I will sacrifice that articulation sort of at the beginning of my fundamentals to make sure that my air and that my chops are vibrating as much as possible without the assist of tongue. And then I bring tongue in later in a lot of exercises that you guys have heard, and arbins and those sorts of things, to really articulate what my lips and what my sound is doing. So that's why there's no tongue really involved for a long time in how I play. So let me show you quickly from the G flat at the top of the bass clef all the way down to pedal G flat. And here I then do the chromatic study. So that was up to pedal C and down. The next one I'll go to D flat, but instead of using all valve down, I'll use 2-3. You'll hear how that sounds. Now up to D natural with 1 and 2 instead of 2, 3, 4, 5. I go all the way up so I end on G flat below the staff, where that exercise is normally written. And then I feel like I have a great ability to attack the low pitches with the regular fingering without being distracted by what the tuba wants me to do. So D flat and D, which are particularly challenging notes, become a little bit more easy to find and center when I'm using false tones. So a new wrinkle to maybe throw in, but it also reinforces the most important thing, which is always ear and sound over meat and over muscle. And over time, it will all come back. So I hope that there's some information there to help you, and also maybe just the idea that I've been there, that we've all been there, and that we can all recover and we can all get better. But remember patience. Remember to be humble with where you're starting from, and get addicted to progress, because progress will take you to places you've never been before. So thank you again, and I hope that helps some little bit. Bye.